was inspired by his dinner of a large circular pizza with a triangle cut away. It looked like a Pac-Man, looked like a mouth.
This episode of Video Gamers Oasis Playful Podcast is brought to you by NordVPN. Get 1 month free of online protection. Click the link in the description below. Video Gamers Oasis Playful Podcast. A playful variety talk show. For gamers, video game history enthusiasts, movie buffs, collectors, and other fans of niche hobbies. Now available for YouTube and Anchor. Stay subscribed and notified for updates. https://anchor.fm/Video Gamers Oasis. And now, the host of the show, that meek geek of all trades, Jeremy from Video...
Hello, welcome back to Video Gamers Oasis Playful Podcast. I'm your host, Jeremy. This is a fun, lighthearted podcast show, available now on YouTube as well as my Anchor.fm podcast website, main podcast station. And this is a place where we talk about gaming history, all kinds of fun, geeky collectibles that we could discuss for hours and hours. This is a brand new episode, and I hope you like my studio here. It's a nice arcade studio with Arnold Schwarzenegger in the background from the classic Predator video game, 1980s. And there's a bolt to my left. There is an arcade bowling alley with purple black light. I hope you in a mood for a nice game of bowling a little bit later, as well as some classic Space Invaders and some other classic arcade games I have in my background. I'm working on developing a better studio. In the meantime, this background will suit me just fine. I wanted to get right to the point. This is a new episode. We're going to discuss a mini-series that's available on Netflix. The show is called High Score, Netflix Series 2020. And we're going to have a bit of a review of each episode. I'm going to make a review vlog. So this is actually be a mini-series of videos that I'm going to be doing. Now, I'm not going to discuss every single detail of the movie because I want you to be able to enjoy this. I just recently saw episode 1 of the series. It's 47 minutes in total, and I really enjoyed it. I'm a bit of a video game trivia nerd, so I really enjoy learning about the origins of all these amazing people who designed these really primordial video games, really old, very primitive by our standards, but they were the godfathers and godmothers of video games, and without them we wouldn't have the video game industry like we have today. So I'm going to briefly discuss each person who was interviewed in the episode. There's going to be some spoilers, so I do highly recommend, if you haven't seen the episode, you go to Netflix right now and watch the show yourself. But we're going to go through each individual who was interviewed, and we're just going to briefly just discuss some of the things they said and some of the highlights of what they said. We're not going to go into too much detail, but we just want to get whet your appetite. I really enjoyed listening to these people talk and their stories. So the first person we're going to listen to, or the first person we're going to learn about in the show, is the very first person they interviewed is Ohio Nishikado, and he was the creator of the legendary arcade game Space Invaders. And here's what he said about how he created the game. He said in an interview, "When I was little, War of the Worlds by author H.G. Wells was very popular. So having grown up seeing that, I thought the aliens were octopuses," because in H.G. Wells' novel, they look like octopuses. "I'd look up at the night sky and wonder whether aliens may come to attack us." That's why he used octopus as the biggest enemy in Space Invaders. He was inspired by Atari's Breakout game. It was a very popular game at the time. It was like very much like Arkanoid. We have played Arkanoid. It's very similar to Arkanoid, but more primitive. It was a game that demanded multiple repeated plays, also multiple quarters. He thought of making a battle-based game. Originally, the game would feature tanks, planes, ships, then various targets. But that didn't work for Tomohiro. So he tried soldier enemies. It made a fun game design, but that setup bothered his conscience. And these are his words. He said people shouldn't be shot. He didn't like the idea of making a war game where human beings were shot. So at the same time of the game, during that game design project he was working on, in the U.S., a very popular movie called Star Wars was released. And he noticed in that movie there was these robots, or droids, as they were called in the movie, inspired Tomohiro to create a droid-like enemy in the game. They would move like humans, but they weren't humans. And that decision ultimately became Space Invaders. They had almost like a mechanical robotic movement, almost like a rhythm to them. Very mechanical, even though they were supposed to be space aliens or space monsters, they acted very much like droids or robots. Tomohiro proceeds to pull out his very old sketchbook, all beginning to wear out. And he says in the interview, while looking through the pages of his journal, he says it's already falling apart, so I'll go through it slowly. These are the original I sketched. I drew a monster like an octopus. Bring down the drawn images, created pixelated monsters for the video game system, for the actual electronic screen. Many of these images, these iconic images for Space Invaders, have become almost memes or very popular icons that to this day are used to represent the classic arcade video game industry. Just one of those crab-like creatures, or those arcade octopus creatures, or those arcade creatures that were kind of creepy looking. They have been icons for the video game industry to this day. And then he goes on to say, then I thought the squid is another sea creature. Here it is. Then there's a crab, although it looks a bit weird. This is and this is the bit version of the UFO. It is not done via this method nowadays. People would hang out at video game arcades during that time in Japan, and customers would sit down at the game tables that would fill the room. Often the rooms were very crowded and dirty from use. It's a very, very hit. It was a hit game, and there was I remember in the interview he talked about at one time he saw a dump truck full of bags of coins from all the money made at the arcades. It was an extremely lucrative video game at that time. Rebecca Heinemann. Now, she was the winner of the first Space Invaders U.S. National Championship. She is now a trans woman gamer. But when she was 16 years old, she was a boy who loved to play Space Invaders. She said in the interview that when she competed in the Space Invaders U.S. National Championship and won, she felt like she was all alone with the gameplay, totally in the zone. And she couldn't believe that she had won. She said when she won the championship, I remember her saying, "I don't want to play Space Invaders anymore." Of course, in the interview, she's playing a video projection on the ceiling, playing a more advanced digital version of Space Invaders. But at the time, she was sick of Space Invaders, even though she won the championship. She played the longest of all the players in that competition. Now, it talks about in the interview, and talks about in the episode, Rebecca had the flow, quote unquote. What is the flow? Well, It explains in the episode that the flow is a psychological concept from Hungarian American psychologist. Now, I've worked really hard to research his name. I'm not going to pronounce it. All you Hungarian people out there who love this gentleman, he did die in 2021. Very sorry about that. But I want to talk about his name. His name was Mcrae Csikszentmihalyi. Mcrae Csikszentmihalyi. He was a Hungarian-American psychologist, very brainy gentleman. And the flow is a highly focused mental state conducive to productivity. He was the distinguished professor of psychology and management at Claremont Graduate University. Very interesting discussion on the flow. Personally, I also think about the bliss that Joseph Campbell talked about, is that when you're in your bliss, time seems to stand still, and you're in the moment, you're in it, kind of feeling great elation, a feeling of a nirvana-like state where you're, and a lot of athletes, of course, get this state of mind or state of where they just seem to be almost like in a Tao. A Taoist philosophy is living in the Tao. I guess Hindu. I don't want to get too much into religions, but the Hindus talk about living in Dharma, and when you're in your Dharma, the universe seems to conspire to make you succeed. It's just a flow, and everything is just clicking, and everything's running smoothly. So that is what the flow is, according to Hungarian. Say his name one more time. Mcrae Csikszentmihalyi. So definitely check out that gentleman's work. Very brainy individual. The next person that was talked to is Doug Mcrae, Steve Golson, and Mike Horowitz of General Computer Corporation. Now these gentlemen, they made accelerator boards for arcade games. This new enhancement, they developed a new software that made the game harder and increased the revenue of the arcade game. More challenge to the player equals more money for the operator. So they basically made a new way of making more money, because many of the players were very sharp players, minds. So this was for to make it more challenging. And Spring Break 1981, they made quote-unquote kits. Super Missile Attack sold over 1,000 and had more missiles, faster missiles, new sounds, smaller clouds, and a UFO enhanced in the game. And they, of course, they sold 1,000 upgraded arcade machines, $250,000 in sales. They also took up one of the most popular arcade games of all time, Pac-Man, and they enhanced it. Mike Horowitz, a programmer, used his expertise to enhance the complexity of Pac-Man. He fixed the flaws. He reverse engineered and made more difficult mazes. The ghosts would have more random attack patterns, and there would be new sounds in the game. One of their games, of course, that they were designed earlier was Super Missile Command, and that got the attention of the Atari Corporation. Atari sued Doug Mcrae, Steve Golson, and Mike Horowitz for tampering with their arcade game. Mike worked on the Pac-Man kit, while Doug and Steve battled in court. They worked late at night, changing anything in their code that Atari had issue with. Atari eventually settled with the three men hired by Atari. They were hired to help engineer games for the company of Atari, and they would have to get permission to enhance any games in the future. Pac-Man was not an Atari game. It was a game designed by Midway. Midway Manufacturing was the Pac-Man's company. So in order to sell their enhanced Pac-Man game, they created a new version of Pac-Man the legendary Miss Pac-Man. And that, of course, became a legend. It even had a funny little commercial. I remember they played a commercial, really old 80s commercial with Miss Pac-Man. And the girl says, "I'm more than Pac-Man, you know. I'm Miss Pac-Man with a bow." It was like a very cheesy Broadway musical style commercial. So it was all those features that they added to the new Pac-Man, and they called it Miss Pac-Man. So that's a great story of that those gentlemen with Toru Iwatani, and he was the creator of the original Pac-Man. The creator of Pac-Man was inspired by his dinner of a large circular pizza with a triangle cut away. It looked like a Pac-Man, looked like a mouth. Pac-Man turned out to be a hit arcade, especially with women. Many women found the yellow hero cute. Eventually, a Miss Pac-Man was created, and therefore we know the story of Miss Pac-Man, how it was created by those, it was engineered by those gentlemen, Doug Mcrae, Steve Golson, and Mike Horowitz. Interview with Nolan Bushnell,
NordVPN. Get 1 month free of online protection. Click the link in the description below. Online security and privacy made simple. One account, all of your devices. No need to buy VPN subscriptions separately for your phone and PC. NordVPN secures up to 6 devices and is compatible with Windows, Mac OS, Linux, Android, iOS, and even your Wi-Fi router. No risk to your wallet. Convenient payment methods. 3 great reasons to choose NordVPN. Fastest on the planet. 5318 plus ultra-fast VPN servers around the globe. Groundbreaking NordLynx protocol. No bandwidth limits. Experience top speed online security with NordVPN. Safe, easy content access. HD movies, live sports, hot TV shows? We got it. It takes just a click or tap to cloak your IP at home or while traveling, letting you view your favorite content in privacy and security. No logs policy. We couldn't provide any details about you to third parties even if they asked. Why? Because we never log what you do online. We've got nothing to reveal. But don't just take our word for it. Popular YouTuber PewDiePie, who has 111 million subscribers, reviewed, "Browse the internet safely, but most importantly, freely. A VPN is one of those things that are just good to have. I recommend NordVPN." 30-day money-back guarantee. Enjoy full access to the award-winning VPN completely risk-free. If you are not 100% satisfied, tell us within 30 days of buying NordVPN and get a full refund. NordVPN. Get 1 month free of online protection. Click the link in the description below.
Interview with Nolan Bushnell, co-founder of Atari Incorporated. He was known as the godfather of video games. In the 70s, Bushnell was a young entrepreneur. His favorite saying was, "Go big or go home." Silicon Valley was originally 80% prune orchards. Everyone was in their late 20s. He created Atari, a new kind of company. An age of Aquarius company, he said. And one of their favorite lines they said was, "Work hard, play hard." In this company that they worked at, the employees had no dress code. They could wear shorts and flip-flops if they wanted to. And they could also come in at noon or midnight because they were adults and they were treated like adults with independent schedules. There was also reportedly, there was no actual documents, but there were board meetings in hot tubs, pot smoking in the halls, and lots of hooking up in that industry. Atari made a ton of money. They made their money making hit arcade games, consoles, and computer systems. Sold to Warner Communications, and Bushnell was out. So he sold this company and the suits took over. I happen to have an old Miss Pac-Man for the Atari 2600 game in my hand right here. Tell me what this reminds you of. All right, I'm blowing the cartridge. Okay, quiet. This is YouTube. You can't make any obscene remarks. Okay, so basically what I'm trying to tell you is what we have here is a game cartridge. Now in the episode 1, they interviewed Karen and Anderson Lawson. They are African Americans, and they are the children of Jerry Lawson, who passed away, who created the use of the game cartridge for the Fairchild Channel F. That's the name of the game system that he'd helped design. Now, before 1976, games like Pong were built in to a single console machine. Karen and Anderson Lawson show photographs of their father to their son in the video. His legacy lives on today. His bosses found out that he was tinkering with technology in his garage. He was a bit of a nutty professor, you could say, of his day. They hired him. They were so impressed by his work that they hired him to build a video game console with interchangeable cartridges, known today as the Channel F. The Channel F was the first video game console with interchangeable cartridges. The video game industry back then, being a highly competitive industry, imitated his ideas. The final person they interviewed in this episode was Howard Scott Warsha, and he was infamous, unfortunately, for developing the E.T., the extraterrestrial, for the 2600 Atari. He was an employee of Atari Incorporated. He found it creative, stimulating, cool to work there. He was the creator of great arcade games, quality arcade games like Yar's Revenge and Raiders of the Lost Ark for the Atari 2600. Raiders was a huge undertaking. Now, E.T., the movie game, was due September 1st, and it was already July 26th. Howard Scott Warsha accepted the mission to build that game. He was very excited, very motivated, maybe a bit overconfident. And he said, according in an interview, he said it was on a Tuesday. Howard was called to travel in San Jose, California, to catch a plane. On Thursday morning, a Learjet would pick him up, and he would go to Steven Spielberg himself, the legendary movie director. He had a special meeting with this legendary filmmaker, and he asked Howard to design a video game based on E.T. the Extraterrestrial, the blockbuster film at that time. Originally, Steven wanted a Pac-Man game, but Howard convinced Steven that such a great movie deserved a more innovative and original style of video game. The real reason, of course, according to Howard, is that it's not the real reason that he didn't want to make a Pac-Man game, because he didn't feel confident to make a Pac-Man's like Maze game. So he found it more easier to make his own style of video gameplay. So Howard set off to create an Atari game based on E.T. the Extraterrestrial. Howard could not do a Pac-Man game, but his own style of game. He almost killed himself from designing the game ideas while driving his car, and he had 5 weeks to complete it. Spielberg eventually, when he got there in time to bring the game to Spielberg, Spielberg gave it a thumbs up. Commercials were made, stores were stocked, and stockings were stuffed with the game, just in time for Christmas shopping. Unfortunately, critics reviewed the game and said they found it cumbersome, crude, and maddening. In other words, it bombed in the video game stores. Too many people complained about how the feature where E.T. would wander around the map and fell into too many pits. And also, the home version of Pac-Man failed to please gamers. And the corporation's quantity over attitude toward game design led to too many games being released that failed to please. That was episode 1. That was the episode 1 review blog. If tune in next time, I'm going to review the episode 2 episode on the Netflix show High Score. 2020 is the date of the show was made. Thanks so much for tuning in. I hope you had a good time having me review this episode. If you want to hear more about such topics, please leave your comments below on my YouTube channel, Video Gamers Oasis. Make sure to also give it a like. I do appreciate it. Helps the algorithm. Also subscribe to Video Gamers Oasis and click the notification bell to be notified of future videos. Also, my podcast can be found on Anchor.fm. Make sure to follow me on Anchor.fm, Video Gamers Oasis, link in the description. You can also find my podcast on Spotify. I'm working on developing a more high-quality, well-researched podcast with better things for me to say than just wandering around, shooting the breeze and maybe playing video games occasionally that are text adventure. I still like to do text adventures, but I want more content that's going to interest more broad-minded gaming enthusiasts. So thanks so much for tuning in. I hope you have an awesome week ahead. Take care of yourselves. Make sure to check out my Facebook, Twitter, and my Instagram, as well as my TikTok. Links in the description. And also, you can also help the work that I do. Download the Brave browser. You can install the Brave browser on your computer as your browser, and it blocks all kinds of unwanted ads and spyware and spy bots. And that's not all. You can watch the Brave ads and earn digital tokens, BATs, which enables you to donate your BATs to my channel and other people who have the Brave browser. It's a great way of expressing gratitude for people's hard work on YouTube and other websites. Thanks for watching. Take care of each other, and we'll see you again real soon. Bye for now.